Good morning, beautiful.
Hey, I was trying to log in from my work computer and it wasn't working.
Okay.
And then I was going to try my iPad to make it better, but my phone worked. So
Oh,
here
yeah, the
I am.
phones are really good with this. Thank you for joining TETRALOGY of FALLOT SPEAKS. I am so glad to talk to you, darling. You have been amazing in the comments. I cannot wait to get to have this interview with you. Now, what I want you to do, everybody know I am Regina Miller, the host, but I want you to introduce yourself, my special guest today.
I will. My name is Sue Bassett. I currently live in Barefoot Bay, Florida.
Okay.
I am 62 years old.
Okay.
And I was born with tetralogy of Fallot. And so as a kid, I knew of myself as a kid with 4 holes in her heart.
Right.
And so anyhow, I had my surgery back when my parents made the decision to do surgery, which I now know was a very brave decision.
Yes.
They had a choice of surgery dates, and St. Patrick's Day came up. Well, my family's Irish, and my father's like, that's the day. We're doing it St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
So on March 17th, 1965 at Yale New Haven Hospital is when I had my open heart surgery. Wow. And I believe back then I was in a hospital like 47 days.
Wow.
Like it was a very long, big deal.
How old were you?
Back then.
How old were you?
4.
Okay, 4 years old. Okay.
So, and that was, and the funniest thing about that was prior to surgery, I had to like gain weight and be like 40 pounds. And my father helped accomplish that by giving me sips of his beer and Hershey bars with almonds.
Wow. Hershey bars with almond. Okay.
I can't lose weight now.
Okay, that's all right. You here, you beautiful. Okay.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
But like, I really, really didn't appreciate what my parents went through until I was an adult, and I actually attended an adult congenital heart disease conference, the national conference, and I can talk about that later.
Okay.
So, here I am today, and the biggest thing is congenital heart disease. It's not cured. It's never really cured.
Right.
And patients, much less anybody else, really do not get that. And we really do need specialized lifelong care.
Yes.
And sometimes we find that out the hard way. So that's a message I want to get across too.
Yes. And I just want to hear, what would you tell a mother who has a small child who is concerned about the longevity of that child's life? What advice could you give a mother with a small child with tetralogy of Fallot?
Well, what I would say is, look at me. I'm 62 years old, okay? I have lived a fairly normal life. Most kids can, but it's that, yearly care, that bi-yearly care makes all the difference in the world. And the biggest message I have is throughout their life, whether they're a kid or an adult, they have to be followed by a congenital heart disease specialist and not just a regular cardiologist.
Right.
That is crucial.
Okay, that's good information. I don't think a lot of them know that.
Yeah, and if you have to travel for better care, if you have the means, find it. And if you don't have the means, ask for help.
Right.
Because there are facilities that are not great. There are other facilities that are like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And in your child's care, you're the advocate. You're the pit bull. Don't let someone tell you what to do. Like, if you have questions, you ask those questions and you keep asking them and get the answers that you need.
Right. As a child, do you remember your childhood with tetralogy of Fallot?
Absolutely.
How was that for you?
It was for the most part normal. Now, the cool thing is when I went to Yale every 6 months or once a year, I always got taken out to lunch afterwards.
Right.
Usually ended up going shopping. What I remember is the lunches afterwards, being treated a little special, the cool waiting rooms at Yale with like pretty cool toys. And I do remember my cardiologist I saw every year, this woman named Dr. Brown, who I thought was pretty cool.
Okay.
So I remember her, but I also remember if I got a cold or anything.
Yes.
Antibiotics, you know, a lot of people don't agree with antibiotics. Trust me. Antibiotics is a way of life, and I didn't know quite why, but whatever my mother said, I kind of, you know, pretty much did.
Right.
I could get tired more easily than others, so I had some limitations, but on the flip side, not really that much in terms of limitations.
Right.
But my mother was also an RN, so she knew
okay,
her
very
stuff,
good.
and she really watched over me and everybody else she ever knew.
Right.
You know, she
When you
always took
said
care
ever
of others
knew.
before herself. And
Yes.
that was her trait for sure. But I will say, once you go from teenager to adult, that's where the big gap is. And even myself, when I became an adult, I got a cardiologist, but I kind of lost track of having a congenital heart doctor check me out. And even my mother didn't realize that that was a big deal. So a lot of us who are older kind of just got lucky in some respects. And I eventually tried to have children and could not. I was infertile. I went through a lot of infertility treatments and a lot of different surgeries for female issues because I ended up with a full hysterectomy when I was like 31 years old. And one of those procedures, I actually bottomed out, and, you know, they brought me back, never thought anything of it, never thought of it could be an arrhythmia or this or that or the other thing. And I really fell out of congenital heart care until probably my early 40s. And my late husband, who had end-stage heart disease, ironically, for driving people to and from the airport and in between airport runs, was the Orlando Sentinel and came across an article about adult congenital heart patients who fell through the cracks and the importance of going to see an ACHD doctor, blah, blah, blah. So next thing you know, the guy who barely took care of himself pushed me to go to an adult congenital heart clinic, which I did. And at the time, I went to Arnold Palmer in Orlando. And this is the ironic thing, and thinking I'm in really good hands and everything's good. And I developed, like most people with TOF repairs from years ago do, my pulmonary valve was leaking. And I was told I finally had a cardiac MRI, and I was told I just had moderate regurgitation, but everything was fine. Then, January of 2018, I was visiting my family in Disney and could barely walk across the parking lot. And they were like, "What's going on?" You go, "Oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah." Well, I went to my regular cardiologist, my adult cardiologist. He did an EKG. My EKG's been stable for right bundle branch block, all this stuff. You know, it's normal for me. He looks in, he goes, "I'm glad you came in. You're an A flutter." I'm like, "I'm an A what?" You know, no clue what A flutter was. And the difference between flutter and fib and blah, blah, blah. And he normally would send a patient to the ER. But he said, "No, you just need to go to your congenital heart doctor right away." Because he's like, "I don't want to screw this up." So that's a sign of a really good doctor admitting what he does or doesn't know.
That's right.
And so this is where my problem lied. I was trying to get in touch with the people at Arnold Palmer, and they referred me over to their electrophysiologist, who I knew from a previous visit was really an adult electrophysiologist and not an adult congenital electrophysiologist. And the nurse at that office said, "Oh, you just have to come to the ER." Well, I didn't want to go to the ER. I didn't, you know, or we have an appointment in February. This was January, like 10th or 12th. And I'm like, this isn't right. So back in the summer of 2017, I went to the Adult Congenital Heart Conference. Met a bunch of people. I actually got a scholarship. I had a roommate who's from Pennsylvania who I'm still friends with on Facebook. And at that conference, she was part of what's called the Zipper Sisters. Which is women with congenital heart disease. And so anyhow, I knew she was part of them. I had met a bunch of the Zipper Sisters at the conference. So I went on Facebook and found their Facebook page. And when I found the Facebook page, I explained what was going on. And one of the girls, Belinda, who is now a good friend of mine to this day, she lives in Seville. She goes, "You have to go to the Mayo Clinic. You have to go see Dr. Christopher McLeod. He's the best, blah, blah, blah." Well, fortunately, the insurance I had at the time was Blue Cross, which covered the Mayo. And I was able to get in there in less than like 4 days.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was like, the heck with Arnold Palmer.
Right.
I get driven up there by a cousin. We had to be there at 7:30 in the morning, and it was a 3-hour drive for us. So it was like middle of the night leaving.
Okay.
We got there, met with Dr. McLeod, took one look at my EKG, immediately sent me for an echo. Come back from the echo, he goes, "Okay, we're going to cardiovert you at 2 o'clock." I'm like, huh?
Right, what is that?
Well, that's when they shock your heart back into place.
Oh.
You know, with the paddles, I'm like, holy,
wow.
Excuse my expression, I'm like, holy shit, like, really?
Yeah.
But this doctor is one of these, look at him, first of all, he's gorgeous, and I'm like, oh, I'll do anything you say. But very, very good, thorough guy. And so anyhow, my blood pressure was like 154 over 110. It was crazy when I was in there. Sure enough, they prepped me and did everything, and they actually they had to put the camera down me, the TEE first, to make sure there were no blood clots before they could do the actual carding. They zapped me with normal sinus rhythm, and then I thought I would end up staying there for a couple days. You know, you're thinking, okay, well, I'll be here. They said, no, you're going home right now. I'm like, what? He goes, well, my blood pressure's high. He goes, we'll put you on some different meds, and he goes, it's not going to go down overnight, but you're going to take it easy, this, that, the other thing, and you're going to follow up with our cardiologist here in the adult clinic, and we'll get this all working right. Okay. But he said to me, he goes, I suspect that you have severe pulmonary regurgitation. And I explained I recently had the MRI, and it was moderate. He's like, get me all those records. Fast forward, they get the records. My MRI, which took forever to get the results from Arnold Palmer, was read incorrectly. I was not in moderate. I had been in severe pulmonary regurgitation for like a year. What? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So wow. That was huge. That was crazy. Yeah. So, so how did you live? I'm not trying to stop you, but how did that feel? I mean, they're telling you that, but the problem as a heart patient over time, you kind of compensate for things. Okay. So you don't even know. So when you're more tired or something, or you have something else going on, you chalk it up to things. Plus, I have fibromyalgia. Yeah, this is ache and pain. So you kind of the signs weren't there. Things, which is not good. But you don't realize it. Right. So, anyhow, I ended up making a few more trips up to the Mayo. Dr. Phillips became my adult congenital cardiologist up there. Her working with Dr. McLeod, coming up with a game plan for me, and finally it was decided there's no doubt I do need a new pulmonary valve. Originally, they were going to fly a team in from the Mayo in Rochester to do my surgery in Jacksonville, which would have been perfect. Okay. And then I kept waiting for a date. Nothing is worse than waiting for a surgery date. And then finally, McLeod says, no, I think Dr. Phillips said to me, hey, could you travel to Rochester, Minnesota? And I was like, yeah. Like, it's not like I have a lot of money, but I had just taken, a loan that was meant for something else. But that money came in handy, really, for all this. Yeah. So one thing led to another, and I got my surgery date, and my surgery date was May 2nd in Rochester, Minnesota, at the Mayo Clinic. And the surgeon that I was getting was like one of the top in the world for adult congenital heart patients for pulmonary valves. So here I am getting, like, as it turns out, you know, it's a good thing that Arnold Palmer read everything wrong, because eventually I got to the Mayo Clinic, best, yes. And I ended up getting one of the top surgeons you could get to perform my surgery. And, you know, at this point, my husband had passed away. So then the challenge was getting help and, you know, relying on family. And you hate to ask anyone for help. Yeah. But you have to sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law, my sister had passed away from cancer in 2017, and my brother-in-law was retired, so I asked him to go with me or to meet me out in Rochester because he lived in Connecticut and hang with me during the surgery, which he did. My other sister wanted to do everything, but she gets me really nervous, and she's great and wonderful, but my brother-in-law is a very calming, soothed person, like in the respect that I needed.
Okay.
So my sister still ended up driving to Rochester, and was there after my surgery. Okay. And then she did help me at home, and I had asked her for the home help. I wanted her at home, for the personal help, not for like sitting around the hospital.
Right.
So it all worked out. I ended up having I had to have open heart surgery. It could not have been could not be with the catheter. I got my new pulmonary valve. They ended up putting a ring on my tricuspid, and then they did what's called a maze procedure, which which is about scarring, and it helps prevent arrhythmias.
Okay.
So, and then my patent ovale had to be patched. So I had all that done.
Okay.
And the mind-blowing thing is, 4 years old, I was in the hospital 47 days. At 58 years old, I was in the hospital 5 nights.
Oh yeah, times have changed. Technology have changed. Yes.
It was, and the care that you get at the Mayo Clinic, with one nurse for every 2 patients.
Oh.
That's basically unheard of.
This is good news.
On the floor, obviously in ICU you get very, very good care in CCU, but as soon as I went to the step-down floor, it was one nurse for 2 patients.
Oh, wow.
So if anyone ever has to have a surgery and you have a choice of places, I highly, highly, highly
recommend the Mayo Clinic. Okay, very good. That's good information.
So that's my whole story. So my message is, and the other thing is, when I was younger and I was trying to have kids, I did not realize until getting involved with the Adult Congenital Heart Disease Association, all the risk of pregnancy for mothers who have had any type of congenital heart disease.
Right.
And you may be stable and fine and everything is great and dandy, but once you have the stress of having a child, it may or may not be a good idea. And if you really want to do it, you have to have the right specialists and care.
Absolutely.
When you do it.
Yeah.
So in the big picture of life, not having a child worked out great for me now, and I can appreciate it. But the other thing that kind of is interesting is when I went to the conference, the Adult Congenital Heart Conference, the main event we had, which there was like a mixer, like a nice dance, like on a Saturday night. I left it about halfway and went up to my hotel room because I started crying. And I was like, I had all this emotion come over me. And it was because I realized how wonderful it was of my parents to make that decision so many years ago, for me to have my surgery so young.
Right.
And then I was thinking about all these younger people. Oh, I've had 2 surgeries. I've had 2 pulmonary valves.
Oh, 5, 6, and 7.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I had next to nothing, and these people are going through so much more. Well, the difference is I never got checked, so I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, my goodness.
There's interventions and things that these young people can do
today,
they're in their 30s and 40s to continue having their normal life.
Technology is changing. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So as much as it sounds like they're going through so much more, well, maybe they are and maybe they aren't.
I found that there is more.
You've got to go with an adult congenital heart disease specialist once you're out of traditional care. So once you train, you've got to find that right specialist, even if you have to travel out of state once a year.
Yeah.
And let them call the shots to make sure that things are being looked at properly.
That's some good news, Dave. You are very informative. And I like that. And that's why I love these interviews, because a lot of parents have a lot of questions. They don't know where to get the answers. This interview, I am going to make sure I put out very informative, because you dropping gems, girl, and even you got me interested in attending a congenital heart convention. I've never been, and I didn't know that they even exist. So even I am learning, and I appreciate that.
The Adult Congenital Heart Disease group is amazing. They even have, you can sign up online at their website. They have a travel guide that anyone who's an adult with congenital heart disease should grab, because it will tell you where every ACHD clinic is throughout the country.
Wow.
There's also, mentors. Like when I was trying to decide about surgery and things, I actually had a mentor that I talked to, so I kind of knew certain things to expect. But the thing is, any woman who's an adult congenital heart disease should look into the Zipper Sisters Facebook page, because honestly,
wow,
that page saved my life.
Oh my goodness.
Because if I hadn't asked about, adult congenital physiologist, and if Boleyn and other people on that site didn't reply to me,
wow,
I probably wouldn't be here today. And
what?
I'm being honest saying that, really.
Wow, that is great news. Y'all hear it? The Zipper Sisters on Facebook. And how long ago was this that you found them?
I found, it was in 2018 when I was.
Oh, that's recently. Okay.
I turned to them in January of 2018.
Wow.
Hopped on the page, got the recommendations to do the Mayo, and fortunately, I was able to get an appointment like within 4 or 5 days.
That is
and it was
awesome.
all good. But the other huge message is health insurance is so important.
Yes.
And every year when you have annual enrollments and so forth, making sure the right stuff is covered.
Right.
And, paying for the best care you can get. And the other thing, I was lucky, very lucky. It was a MetLife policy at the time.
Okay.
But I have an Aflac policy where I have hospitalization. And back when I went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, my MetLife policy paid me, so much a day for being in the hospital.
Well, and that's good news too.
Up to $200 a day for hotel for my support person.
Oh
so
my!
All the money I was paying towards a hotel.
MetLife, that's a gem. MetLife,
but Aflac also has policies like that. So through work, if you can get a policy at all, that
those are the two top ones.
Hospitalization,
for you.
Serious illness, all that. The ironic thing is there's one that if you have a heart attack, or if you have valve replacement, if you have like bypass surgery, you can get this lump sum payment. I tried to apply for that. I got denied because it was a congenital thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I didn't fight it that
hard. A lot of them don't. A lot of them don't honor.
Words, if I had clogged arteries and bypass, it would have been paid for. No questions asked. But because instead I have a new pulmonary valve and the tricuspid, no, that doesn't get covered.
Okay. So, wow.
Kind of ironic. But the other final piece that I'll tell you, post-op, I had an appointment with my regular adult cardiologist to just keep him in the loop. And he finally said to me, he goes, I have to tell you something. And my cardiologist is probably like in his late 50s. I've been in my practice for a long time now. He said, you are the only patient I've ever had in my practice who's ever had a new pulmonary valve.
Wow.
So, you're a rarity. And, I commend you for taking such good care of yourself.
That's good. That's good. Yep.
It's good when a cardiologist, but if you have a doctor who starts saying, do this, do that, and they're not even taking the congenital heart disease into account, get rid of them.
Right.
I had a family friend who has her own walk-in clinic, and she's a nurse practitioner. And I walked in just because I had a cold, so I didn't want to drive far to my primary care. And she's like, oh, you probably just needed a pacemaker. I'm like, excuse me?
Oh, my God.
She had no clue what my issues were, and didn't even really want to know. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going back to you.
My God.
So there are great, wonderful physicians out there, and there are ones that
do your research.
Good, and in your gut, if you think someone's not right, run.
You have to do your research. Yeah. Well, I am just so glad that, in today's society that people are living with TOF. Again, my daughter, was deceased at 2 years old. So I just have the baby story, and God chose her story for her, but just hearing you and the others living, as long as you live, it gives me great joy. Like, I'm excited because that was my
Aw.
prayer. I was like, God, I hope all people with Tetralogy of Fallot don't have to leave the earth so soon. And so to do what I'm doing, and I'm finding out so much things, and I'm through these interviews I'm learning a lot too. I'm just so grateful, and I'm happy.
No, but the other message that I think you probably definitely understand, that I'm only learning as I get older, is when it comes to TOF,
Yeah,
there are very big variations of TOF.
it really is
Serious cases.
Yeah.
And there are kind of, quote, mild cases. Like, there's a lot of
It's
groups
so
in
many
TOF,
different ones. Yeah.
And honestly, I probably still don't know enough details about
And it's
TOF,
crazy,
and I
yes.
may never will.
Right.
All I know is that I have new pulmonary valve. I'm doing everything I can to protect it, especially, during COVID and all that.
Right.
And, but I know I have to get my yearly exam, and I know I'm going to have to get, and it may not be till later this year finally, but I have to get a cardiac MRI probably every other year.
Okay.
And with health insurance, you have to figure out how the heck to pay for it.
Right.
Because the co-pays, and my deductible's up to $2,500, and basically if I have a MRI, chances are I have to dig up $2,500 because
really,
because if I'm not in my deductible, I will have to pay that whole deductible towards that MRI.
Oh, wow.
So you have to really, dig into your insurance. Healthcare reimbursement plans are what I'm all about.
Okay.
Or, PAs, or I like flexible spending better because if you need the money, it's, funded for the year. If you don't use it, you lose it. Well,
right.
I never lose money. So, that type of thing, you, as a congenital heart patient, you could be fine today and have a major issue tomorrow.
Yeah.
So have those funds available.
Right.
And
well, you are amazing with the information. I mean, you are dropping some gems, girl. Are you on any medication now?
Oh yeah.
For Tetralogy of Fallot?
I'm on blood pressure, different blood pressure
No,
medicines.
not that. Like for TOF.
Well, yes, because your blood pressure like one of the meds that a lot of congenital heart patients will be on is metoprolol, because it's a blood pressure med, but it also has a lot to do with controlling your heart rate and all that. I am fortunate. I do not have to take anything in terms of blood thinners other than the baby aspirin. And actually, I take the baby aspirin for a different genetic disorder that was discovered having. Because, when you have TOF, it doesn't mean the only thing you have wrong in your life is a bum heart.
Right.
I ended up being BRCA positive, JAK2 positive, all this other stuff.
Okay.
And then you have to mix all that into, but you know what, that's life. The one thing about TOF probably that has helped me is having a positive attitude. Yeah. And not giving up, because you can't feel sorry for yourself.
That's true, and that's in any situation. You're right.
Be positive and do the best you possibly can.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I asked that because my daughter was on latex. I don't know if you heard of latex, but she was on latex.
Latex. And, I have a form of. I have a little form of it that I take every morning.
Oh, okay. Good. So I ask people that question because that's the one thing that my daughter did take till she had to take it from newborn up until 2 years old till she left here. So that was her story. And I mean, you're just amazing. I think you are great, and you're such a warrior. I mean, do you have a story of like a wow story that you would like to share with the community? Like something that just stood out in your situation that you can just kind of like share with us, other than what you've already, because you've given us so much information, but is there like a wow story, something, a miracle